Well, welcome everybody to the Leadership Lounge Business Book Club. The first rule of book club is we always talk about book club. Slogan I'm working on.
Yeah.
This is book club is brought to you by Sedaris Agency, which is a consulting agency founded by myself, Chris, and Shannon. Believe it or not, it took us 4 months to hatch up this idea and get to execution. So we're glad to finally be here reading the book. And our book is The Let Them Theory by, I should have this printed up, Mel who?
Robbins.
Get that down. Mel Robbins. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Sky. So first off, I wanted to ask a couple of questions before we dive into reading, assuming we've looked at the best. And maybe I should have asked these last week, some baseline questions. And I stole these from the study guide. All right. So it's not me inventing these. So when you first saw the book title and heard the phrase "let them," what's the first scenario, relationship, or situation that came to your mind? I don't know if we just want to somebody answer out loud, or I can call people. All right, Shannon.
I had never heard of the publication before, even though after I started talking to people about it, yeah, I heard that's good. I've been wanting to read it. But I just assumed it was about not trying to control other people's emotions and actions, responses, and that there's a benefit to that. That's all I thought of immediately.
So far, that sounds spot on for what I've read. Other thoughts?
Yeah, that's kind of the same with me. I think the name actually pretty aptly describes what it is. So first thing I thought of was people running off a cliff. I don't know why that's what came to mind, but that's what I had.
Interestingly, I had a different first impression before I read the book. I was very much thinking of it from a leadership only perspective, and I think they're going to cover this later. But my thought was, let them do their job.
Yeah.
And I do think she gets to that later. I haven't read that chapter yet, but that's what came to my mind. Anything else to add, Sky?
What I thought of, I think she covered in chapter 1, and this is probably a good chance for me just to kind of give I was thinking about this before the meeting, like how do I talk about the book? And I got to be honest, when I read chapter 1, when I saw the title, and when I read chapter 1, I started to get a little butthurt. I was like, man, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like this. When you say, because when you say let them, you're essentially saying there's so many books out there now, or maybe there used to be, and maybe that's what I thought this was going to be. So many books that essentially say, don't surround yourself with negative people. Be who you are. Isolate yourself to allow yourself to succeed. These kind of mantras and sayings, and I do not like that, to be honest. I mean, it makes you isolationist. It makes you a little bit cocky, I think, in times. And so I don't want to get too passionate about this, but that's what I thought of when I saw the title. I thought, man, I don't know if I want to read a book about basically saying I'm better than everybody else and let them go mess up because I'm going to do things the right way. Mm-hmm. And then when I read chapter 1, I kind of still thought that, but then it changed.
Yep.
It's funny. I didn't even think about that isolation theory, which she does cover in chapter 2. And just by the way, for the recording, we read chapters 1 through 3. So it's funny, Sky, that your first reaction was a little bit of, isolation is superiority, which she just happened to cover right in step 2. It never crossed my mind. What were you saying, Shannon?
I am reflecting on the point that you made, because you talked about from a leadership perspective. From a coach's perspective, I do remember thinking that might apply to something when I went to, coaches training, not to be tied to the outcome of somebody else, not be tied to someone else's acceptance and implementation of what you're coaching them about. Don't be tied to that, because if they don't do what they're supposed to, or if they're being negative and everything, don't take that upon yourself to fix. So I forgot about that.
Nice. I guess that's kind of like I keep, I have some things that I teach repetitively to my clients as well. And I would love just to tell them to do X, Y, and Z. And I do hint at that or try that at first, but they almost never accept it. I have to let them do it their way and come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of what I took away with all 3 chapters. The first chapter I was with this guy. I was like, oh crap, what have I got us into? And then as I got into it, and admittedly, I was listening to it via audiobook, so it was a little easier to walk and think and talk. But instantly, I was thinking back to all of the occasions where I had staff that was doing this or doing that, and I tried to crowbar them into a different direction. It doesn't work. They have to have buy-in. They have to agree. They have to want to do the thing that you're asking them to do, and they have to think that that's truly going to be the way for them. And instead of letting them essentially fail and then learn from the mistake and then maybe take suggestions. So I think that I'm looking forward to the rest of the chapters for that. I think that this is going to be a lot for me, a reflection on all of the stuff that I could have done differently. And hopefully we'll make different choices in the future based on letting people do their own thing.
So in chapter 1, just a quick summary, the way I see the summary of the chapter is she tells a story about prom being a kind of an overbearing mother who wanted her son to do things a certain way for prom. And in the end, she learned from her daughter about people, like, just let them be. It doesn't actually impact you. So that's what the first story is. And as a jaded business veteran, I feel like I'm already 90% good at the let them theory in business. But then suddenly I go home and I'm back at like 20 to 30%. And the first thing I thought of also was like, my wife needs to read this book. Did you guys have other people you thought of as well besides yourself when you started reading?
Yeah, my ex-wife.
Let's just take a minute and call them out online here real quick.
Yeah, I won't say her name, but I can say
We need names, birthdates, and social security numbers, please.
Pretty much, yeah, Instagram handles.
Tell her address, you could throw rocks. No, my daughter being the central person in this, because we all live in the same town and we share time with my daughter. The things that I hear from her that sounds like in my mind she's still that controlling, but so I was thinking this applied to her, and I was always right about that.
I'm curious if our perceptions are going to change as we keep reading.
Oh, yeah, I started to see where it applies to me for sure.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, right? Is at first you think about that, you do think about other people and how this applies to them. I think that's the normal response probably, and then very quickly you switch and say, okay, but I'm reading this book. I need to think about how this applies to me in the situations, because my first thought was a couple former bosses who did not let them. They tried to control every facet, every decision, every
micromanage and
very cool. Well, just to kind of finish off chapter 1, I'm going to try to follow the study guide a little bit, which Chris so kindly provided, and it's on our webpage too, right, Chris? The study guides now.
Yes.
I'm just going to read a quick excerpt and ask one question from chapter 1, and then we can move on to the next chapter. So here's the excerpt from chapter 1. The truth is, other people hold no real power over you unless you give it to them. Here's why the let them theory works. When you stop trying to control things that aren't yours to control, you stop wasting your energy. You reclaim your time, your peace of mind, and your focus. You realize that your happiness is tied to your actions, not someone else's behavior, opinions, or mood. Now, here's the question. When is it hardest for you to do that in your own life, and why? And segue story, Chris is highlighting the same form that I'm reading, and the thing, curses are jumping around trying to read it. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I'll stop.
It's all good.
For me, I think this is when I definitely struggle with this. When I see somebody who's doing something that I've already failed at once and I know is going to fail again. And, there is a chance it'll have a different outcome, and that, different things done by different people results in different outputs. But in general, that's a hard one for me, when I'm like, no, that I've done this, been there, done that, and this is what's going to happen. And, people may or may not believe you. So, yeah.
Someone else?
I think my best example, I think when I think about this the most often is not in business sense, it's in the interpersonal sense. So sort of where you were going, Alan, too. the I don't know if you guys do this, but you replay conversations after you've had it, right? And you're, I should have said this instead, or ooh, I should have said that, right? Either way, on the humble side or on the aggressive side. Anyway, but regardless, when you're replaying those conversations, you can also say, should I even be bothering replaying this conversation? Should I have just let them go and do their thing and me go do my thing?
Just take in your energy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten better at not struggling with this with my wife. But I do find that she is constantly like asking me questions about how do I make someone else do X? And I'm like, that's the wrong question, right? You know, if a client's not paying you, you cannot force them to pay, right? There are things that you can do, but it's not just the right words to make somebody act a certain way.
Yeah.
Shannon?
I would say in chapter 1, to a couple points, learning that I give people my power, in the sense that, I'm letting myself shrink back and trying to see and trying to focus on if they're doing what I said and giving them feedback and seeing how they react to it and being attached to it. And her prom story was interesting because that was all about stop controlling her son's decisions because it doesn't affect her in the way that it felt like it would. And I can relate to that because sometimes with my daughter, I have to admit that it's like, I think I'm better than her mother at it. But at the same time, I do know that that I do want to control her image because she's my daughter, and some things she does, I'm like, that's not how you were raised, girl. Like, your work ethic and all these different things. And I think a lot of people could relate to these young generations, and I can pat myself on the back for letting her do her, but I could see where I could do a lot more, and it could be a lot less stressful for me when I do that. Let her be herself and let her create her own. She's got her own culture and she's got her own legacy to live out, not mine.
You bring up a good point, Shannon. This is something I thought about as I was reading this. I wonder how much of this applies generationally, right? Because each generation is very different. I don't know if you all have the same thing, but your parents typically are most of our parents probably are from the silent generation, right? Won World War II, rebuilt the nation, hard work, but stay quiet about it, no emotions. And then the baby boomers, and then the X generation, and each generation has a completely different way that they view the world and the way that they view other generations. And I wonder how other generations would read this, because you're talking about your daughter. She might take it a different way when you just say, okay, you go make that mistake. I'm going to watch you. I'm going to be here. I'm gonna love you when you come back, but boy, you really shouldn't do that. Or would she rather be the kind that, like, do not do that? This is the repercussions. Absolutely not. I don't know.
So, Scott, you might have provided me with a good segue into chapter 2, as you did with your first statement too about isolation. So chapter 2 is called Getting Started, Let Them and Let Me. And I rarely take notes about books, but chapter 2 fascinated me for some reason. One, there is some science involved. So part of what the let me theory is, and by the way, I had trouble articulating this, so you guys can help me with this, but it's actually giving yourself time to reduce your amygdala response, that stress response. Like, oh, I'm so hyped up. I'm in the moment. I can't stop myself. I also wrote the words stress is bad. As a reminder what the let me part is trying to do. I've always had a fascination with philosophy, but I've never studied it. And I heard the word stoicism in this chapter. And, in the book, it says, focus on yourself and accepting reality. And I decided to Google what the heck stoicism really was, because I wasn't quite convinced. So it's a school of Hellenistic philosophy founded in ancient Greece that teaches that virtue or moral excellence is the only true good, and that we achieve peace by aligning our judgments with reality rather than trying to control external events. So basically, it asks the one question: what is actually under your control? Everything else goes in the indifferent column, and I wanted to also pronounce the word Epictetus. Epictetus is the philosopher who came up with that. Somebody's going to correct me on that later, I'm sure, in the video 1,000 times. So that's interesting thing that I learned was about what Stoicism is, accepting reality. So what did you guys think of chapter 2 and the adding the let me to the philosophy?
Good afternoon, Jay.
Hello. I'm sorry my meeting ran late earlier, so glad
That's
to
okay.
see you guys. I could find you.
Glad to have you.
You're here.
We were just
Like I
jumping
said
over
earlier, in
chapter
chapter
2.
1. Yeah, like I said earlier, I was happy when chapter 2 came up because it resolved chapter 1 for me, and it brought it all back into center, and it made it, you know, it kind of made me trust her a little bit more. Reading chapter 1, I was like, oh, I don't know, and then chapter 2 is like, okay, I trust her. I can see why she's, and then she talks all about her, how much she's traveled and how much she's asked to speak. Was that chapter 2 or was that 3? Anyway, and obviously for good reason. Right now, I can tell when she really focused on, and Stoicism is a great example of it because the Stoics, in their school of thought, they want you to be aware of your emotions, control your emotions, but not in a point of becoming the way that we think of Stoic, like never show any. They want you to be aware of it and control it, know how it affects you, know how it affects others, but not in a
No Spocking.
realistic sort of way, I think.
Yeah. Don't be a Spock.
Spock is greatly emotional, though.
Inside.
Yes.
That's actually a conversation that I've had with some close family and my wife, is that I'm very in control of my emotions, and sometimes it comes off as robotic. And I have to remind people, I do have these emotions, I just control them. And just let them know that what you said actually hurt me. I'm just not going to respond in the way you expect a hurt person to respond. I'm not giving you that. Sorry. Maybe that's a tangent, but that's
Okay, it's good to know.
came to my mind just now.
She addresses that a little bit. Don't absorb the emotions so much that it increases your stress level.
Yeah.
I think this is the chapter where I started to list all of the things I should be letting them let them. Like this, this is the beginning of the list. Like that needs to go on the list. This needs to go on the list.
Not to put you on the spot, Chris, you want to share one? You have one you could just, it can be about Shannon and I if you like.
Since we're calling people out. I think it's I had a business deal recently that fell through, and I keep thinking about that business deal and how I can reapproach it. And the reality is that it's done and gone, and the things that happened, and there's not really any saving it at this point. Neither side, my side or the other side, wants to go back to the table, but I keep thinking about it, and it's consuming a lot of resources. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and think about it, and then not go back to sleep for 2 hours. So there really is no reason to carry that along. So why am I? That's one of those things that they've chosen their path, and I need to let them choose their path, even though I might not agree with the path.
So quick quote in the book for that: don't waste your energy chasing someone who's already left. And I'm curious for the second half of the equation, Chris, when you let them, what are you letting you do? What's your let me side of that?
Yeah, that's stop thinking about it.
Bring up that time and
Free up
energy.
that energy, yeah.
I think one of the comments that kept coming back to me is one of the comments that I heard from one of our pastors when he talked about this kind of bitterness. When you have bitterness towards somebody else, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And it's kind of that let them, just let them do their own thing, but don't let it affect me anymore. I can move beyond that because they're certainly not thinking about me. I can go on and be free to move forward.
Honestly, this is my favorite part about sermons, is when somebody's able to deliver me a metaphor or an analogy that's that simple and that powerful to live my life by. Uh,
And
very
I
cool.
would say ditto to what Sky mentioned about, about trusting the author at this point, because I was fearful that she was going to go into some type of superiority that I need to become somehow. And I'm thinking, hey, I like what I'm working on here with humility. So you're pushing me the way. But that's not the way it was. Letting me, I found out it's more about how the first chapter talked about shrinking yourself by trying to control other people's. Now, if I stop that, I'm not shrinking myself. I'm letting me be me and focusing on myself and who I want to be, more so than thinking that's going to work on someone else. So the investment should be in me and how I respond to things. Investing in them, it doesn't even make sense. I don't even have their bank account number. How am I going to make deposits to them? I need to deposit in my life, and that's not that's okay. Coming from a Christian background, it's like that's okay. It's not selfish. It's actually wise.
I had a little bit of difficulty myself summarizing what chapter 3 was about, titled "Shocker, Life is Stressful." Besides just what reinforcing that take a moment and breathe. Does somebody else have what they can summarize chapter 3 as?
I have to struggle when we talk about chapters.
Yeah,
Because in the audio book, it doesn't break it down into chapters. So I don't know where we're at.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of odd too. Like, I was used to the narrator, in this case, her going chapter 3 and then starting it on chapter 3. There's none of that.
He doesn't do that. No.
So my audiobook, maybe it's because I was actually reading the screen and I stay pretty busy. So I tend to like commit to a chapter, then I'm watching it. As soon as it switches, I press pause and do the rest of my day and come back. So maybe that's why I saw the chapters, but I definitely saw the delineation.
Yeah, I was sanding a cabinet. I didn't hear it.
I've got the book, so just it's basically the one about the airport, the sitting in the seat and turning around.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
the gentleman behind her open mouth coughing. She
That
described
was
it.
painful for me because I wanted to help her. Really, I did.
Me too. It's like,
But
that's my
one
limit.
of the things that I like about the way she is writing this book, though, are those kind of stories that actually, instead of telling us what we should do, what we should think, it's illustrated through those kind of examples that every one of us have experienced. And that's the real benefit of this kind of writing.
Now, I might be a classic type AA personality, but one thing I don't like about the book is she spends a long time teaching me what I need to learn, and I feel like I get the point in the first couple of paragraphs. But that's what audiobooks are for. I'm at 1.8 speed now with her. I usually don't go that fast with most authors.
Well, it was a long story, right? I think that's part of it. Is that it's a story? She's a storyteller, so that took a while to get that out.
And I get it. Like, people need storytelling, and when I used to read paper copies, I'm a speed reader. For those reasons. So any final thoughts before we talk about what we're going to do next week? For those who don't know me, I'm very punctual in my time.
I'll try to do better next week. I just ran late and
Totally fine.
I do think we understand that there are more important things than book club, even we don't like to think so.
Well, did everybody tell Jay the rules that we do bad mouth the people that before they show up on the line?
I would expect nothing less. So
I'm joking.
Perfect.
I'm totally joking.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Volunteer them for things. Yeah.
All right.
and I can't. I promised I would be on time next week, and I see I have a meeting that butts up next to this one again next week. But we'll do our very best.
Yep. So my only thought in reading this is how we've broken up the chapters. I realized in picking up a physical copy of the book that the chapters are in clusters. There's so the 3 and 4, for example, we covered chapter 3, but 3 and 4 are managing stress. 5 and 6 are fearing other people's opinions. So that she's got some clustering of things that it might be helpful to break up our discussions into those clusters as well.
So if we do 3 chapters this week, we end on a cluster, and then 4 the following week would give us 2 clusters. Does that work?
I think that's a good idea.
And maybe we could even break up the hosting and the Q&A to the clusters instead of chapters to move things along a little faster.
Yeah.
Yes, Shannon.
And before moving on, I was thinking that this might be relevant here. But I took the plane on the chapter 3, that plane trip. I could relate 100%. And yes, I even thought, man, I guess I could always bring a mask because that's me taking control of my health. And however, I started to think, okay, but how am I not doing that? How am I showing up like the way she was? It's just like she wants to keep looking at the person. I realize that when I go to the gym, I have a similar attitude because I'm an old school gym person. And so it kind of relates to these different generations. But now we see kids with they're sitting on the equipment with their phones and looking up exercises. They take 6 sets of weights and put it around the bench. And sometimes I'm not normally like this, maybe because my testosterone's going up while I'm there, but I give them a stare down sometimes. Or if they don't wipe off the equipment, I say something like, nice, I'll get that for you. And that's not me normally, but at the gym, I'm very different. I have to, that's where I saw the modern day application for me right away. Let them be them, do them, and continue to. I always clean it, but I don't have to I don't have to give them a scolding look and give them the whole, hello. I don't need to go there. That's not who I want to be.
And not just what you don't do, but what could you do instead? As in, you could get another set in, or you could try a new exercise,
or practice your passive aggressiveness. Do you need help wiping this seat down?
Or call me and I'll send you a cookie.
I have guys that leave 6 sets of 45s on machines that a lot of times women are 90% using that equipment. And even for them, I'm like, seriously? Because they have to, anyway, that's probably my.
I can feel your stress already rising in this call.
Yeah, we've definitely triggered him.
Do some box breathing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So at our previous call, we said we'd like to rotate hosts. Do we have a volunteer host for next week? If all else fails, it goes to Chris.
I think I can do it next week. I think I'm 99% sure I am available and we'll be here.
Great.
One recommendation, we probably should always have a backup just in case, because all of our schedules, I'm sure, can get tossed about at any moment.
Oh, yeah.
So
I feel like Chris, Shannon, and I should always show up prepared to host, just since we put it together. But it's nice to have other voices and other perspectives.
Yep.
And if I'm correct, our source of truth, because we're still learning and we're still trying to get this as smooth as possible and more people involved. Our source of truth will be our website, sedaris.com/business-book-club. You can also find it in the menus. We've been so far making practically daily edits, just trying to get the details right. Chris has created a calendar invite, which will also keep the meeting invite in there. And he's just pasted the meeting link directly on that same web page, so you can always find it. And we'll also be putting the recordings there so people can catch up, and on YouTube. Chris and Shannon, anything I've failed to mention?
I don't think so.
Well
Good
done.
job, Alan.
Appreciate it.
Look at the time.
Right now.
Okay, so next week 4, 5, and 6, and/or minute 1 hour 3 to I don't know. I'm making it up for the audio.
I'll just leave you, man. The chapters are between 28 and 42 minutes each.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See you guys. Well, I might not see you guys next week unless it works out. It'll be 3 a.m. in Philippines.
Good Lord.
But who knows?
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.